Good afternoon, Neil here with Simpler Futures, Simpler Trading, and we're in the Voodoo Mastery mainly. And this is the end of the week, Friday the 13th, the week prior to expiration, triple witching next week. All right. So last we were together, it's the daily chart of ES. Last time we were together was back here on this Friday. And you can see we were looking at the time, if you remember, we said, up, but come right back in. And up was 59.50, 60.50, but come right back in toward the end of the week. And we get news here is what happened, and it did come right back in on news, but either way it came back in. So the good news is it finally makes that 60-50 target that we've been talking about for 2 weeks or whatever. And then the bad news is news happened, and it comes down toward the end of the week here. But we really had that discussion last week. Almanac is it's a little bullish on Monday. The Almanac is, but man, I don't know with the news that just happened. I mean, honestly, look, let me just say it this way. Honestly, anything can happen. It's very common to come back into the end of the week prior to the monthly expiration. What worries me is the fact that it came back on that news and there was seemingly no kind of, resolution. That whole mess that happened in the news seemed to continue kind of escalating, honestly. You saw what happened with energy. I mean, crude rallied like 8% overnight, and then the equities, kind of came back. Gold soared, energy soared, but the equities suffered. So the expected move next week is a plus or minus 120. Now, here's what's interesting about that. Okay, from here, 120 up would put it back in. Look with me here where I'm pointing back here on February the 24th. See, that was the beginning of the break. And then this candle comes on the 24th, comes back up inside a little bit before it just pukes and falls out. So my target there, a bull target, would be 60.95 by let's just say 60. It was 6,100. I mean, that's 60.95, just 6,100. So 6,100 by 61.20 in that wick on the 24th. Plus or minus 120 though puts it down to this voodoo tree line down here, right there. That voodoo tree line you can see labeled on the chart at 58.70. And I guess we have to go with, honestly, neither one would surprise us. Normally, what I anticipate historically is, yes, down into the end of this week, and then, we call it the pit bull low. It's an observation dubbed by Marty Schwartz a bunch of years ago, like 25 years ago. And then it tends to kind of work its way back up into the expiration. I don't know. I mean, I've said for a long time that it's normal to pull back toward the end of this week and then sort of get okay into the expiration. I just have to say it's going to depend on this news. Further escalation over the weekend is going to have this thing open lower again. There were some weird things that happened today too, by the way. For the first time in ages and 100 blue moons, the S&P traded all day inside of its overnight range. That's not normal. Not at all. Now, the initial balance usually breaches, and it did, but stayed inside the overnight range, all day today for just an incredibly rare event. So, look, I would be, it's news. It's going to depend. I mean, bearish, I can tell you, we'll use essentially the weekly open as the marker for up down. Bearish is going to take it down to 58.70 and bullish will take it up into around that 6100 back on the 24th that we just mentioned. I want to lean a little bullish because of the historical tendency for this dip into the end of the week to right. It's just normal to do that, but the ship generally kind of comes right next week. Typically, historically, that is. That's going to be a tough one though. The low today, I mean, it was for the RTH session anyway, was the weekly pivot that kind of held sort of nicely. That was decent to do that. Frankly, honestly, it doesn't close very well, especially on this range. But I'll just tell you what I'm going to do next week. I'm going to use the weekly open as my line in the sand. And if we get setups that have us lean bullish, I'm going to be trying to reach up and hit about 6100. And then bearish, I know what the target's going to be, this 5870 down here, this voodoo tree line. And then next week, we will begin having conversations about what to look for into the end of quarter, the June 30 SPX quarterly expiration, the end of quarter on the options chains. Now that, I'll tell you in advance, is going to be bearish. So I think we've talked about the why and where the open interest is on the options chain and that kind of thing. So that'd be the reason for that. That's the best I've got on where we stand right now. I mean, what we were looking for this week, it happened. We were going up into 60-50, but then do not hold and come back toward the end of the week, and that happened. But then you look at it and you go, well, yeah, it happened on news. And say, okay, it did, but it happened either way. And okay, well then that's normal, you say. So what normally then follows? And that would be up next week. So I want to try to lean bullish. But if price continues to break with some more bad news over the weekend, next week, I'll tell you, I will bearish. I will be targeting 5870. So that's what I've got for you tonight. Hope it helps. And good trading. Have a good weekend. We'll get back after it again next week. Oh, and a holiday toward the end of next week too on Thursday. So it'll be kind of a short week also. It's gonna be a really interesting week next week for all of these reasons. My goodness. So we got our work cut out for us, but certainly we will, stay after it as we always do. Good trading. Take care.
Without simpler trading, I could not have financial independence.
This is one of the best investments I ever made in my life.
It's helping me find consistency.
It's one of the things that won me.